Feast or famine is not a marketing problem, it is an offer problem. If delivery changes for every client, your calendar fills, but your profit certainly does not. If your offer is too templated for a complex buyer, you're going to lose the deal. So today, I'm going to give you the matrix to decide whether you should go custom packages, templated packages, or a hybrid approach. Here's the problem. You are stuck between margin and momentum. Custom work will win you logos, but it usually will drain operations. Packages sell faster, but sometimes they can feel too generic. There's also the other issue of running into scope creep with custom packages, long sales cycles for custom packages, and uneven cash flow that will keep you capped. So it's managing all of these different pains. But by the end of this episode, you will have a way to score your business with an offer matrix or an offer fit matrix to pick the right model and leave with pricing rules, delivery guardrails, and hopefully a 30-day transition plan if that's something that you would like to do. So here is the proof in my pudding. I have moved teams from one-off custom builds to productized packages and back to hybrid whenever needed. And oftentimes what I found is wins came when we matched the delivery to the buyer complexity and we measured those inputs weekly. Now, I did already mention earlier that custom packages aren't as innately scalable because it's not a templated package, but we'll go over how they all intertwine. First, we're going to talk through the offer fit matrix. Secondly, we're going to talk through 3 working models. And thirdly, we're going to talk through pricing and guardrails. And fourthly, that 30-day transition plan that I mentioned. And here's a quick story for you. A team offered anything content. It was great work, but the margins were pretty brutal. And we mapped out the last 10 wins and saw 80% were the same 12 steps. So 80% of their clients were just going through the same 12 steps. And then we packaged that outcome and we kept a premium custom tier for enterprise nuances. So that installed guardrails. The close rate improved, the cycle time dropped, and then margin stabilized because we're like, oh, okay, we can just package this part. And then these other bigger people, bigger dogs, they want those other 20% on the top that have a little bit of differences. We can separate those two and still have the scalability that we're looking for. So the offer fit matrix, you can score these 0 to 2 for each of these. Outcome variance, your ideal client persona maturity, the ticket size and risk, the sales cycle length, and the delivery variability, capacity utilization, and the case study density plus margin volatility. That sounds like a bunch of buzzwords, so I'm going to break down each of those. Outcome variance. Do most of the people that work with you come to you for a specific outcome? Like, do they want more leads? Do they just want to look better online? Do they just need a website that loads? Do they need a website that loads in under 2 seconds? Like, what is the actual outcome that most people are coming to you for? The next is ICP maturity. And what I mean by that is how far along is your ideal client in their business? Is this someone who just started their business 2 months ago and they need help with their headshots? Or is this a enterprise entity that's been around for 10 years and does, hundreds of millions of dollars? The ticket size and the risk would be, is somebody paying you $200? Are they paying you $200,000? Sales cycle length is basically when somebody first comes into contact with your business, are they taking 2 days to close because it's a real easy no-brainer, or does this take 4 weeks? They need to bring other people into the decision-making process. It has to get approved. The budget has to get approved. They have to vet you for some other reason. You got to knock on their door 20 times. Delivery variability, I feel like that's pretty self-explanatory. Capacity utilization. This is also what I mentioned earlier about how, does working on a custom website take 6 developers where the templated one takes 1 or 2? How does that impact your overall capacity to take on work? Case study density, how many times have you done this for this ICP? And then margin volatility, the more custom work, are you just thinning out the margins because it's more custom? Or is it actually like, this is great, we should do custom because the margins are so wide? And how does that vary from client to client? So when you're doing this scoring system, 0 to 6 means you should probably stick with packages. If you score 7 to 11, you should do hybrid. If you score 12 to 16, you should probably do custom. So next, let's talk about choosing your model. Packages, which is typically one promise, you have fixed steps, and you have a flat price. Custom, you're going to do paid discovery. You're going to do phase statement of works. So basically, once we get your site hosted, that's phase 1. Then we take the content and upload it into the pages. That's phase 2. And then phase 3 is implementing, I don't want to say the database, but you get the idea. I didn't want to say database because I didn't want to look like a fool. And then you have strict change orders. And then the hybrid approach is the 80% package with up to 3 modules of customization. So those first 12 steps are the same, and then you can play with the last 4. And they're all basically, you provided options to them, so it may feel more custom, but it's still pretty templated. This episode is brought to you by All Things Media. We build your online presence to position you as an authority and bring in consistent, high-quality leads. Go ahead and book a call with me or my team through the link in the description. Before I talk about pricing and guardrails, I do want to mention another story because I've been waiting to tell this story for at least a year, almost exactly a year. If you've never been to Bali, Indonesia, you gotta go. It's a wonderful place. But something that I was so impressed with was at the, this is funny to bring up in this conversation, at the places where you get a massage, they would provide you with man, I'm really gonna have to dig deep in my memory here. They would provide you with this piece of paper. It was like an intake form, right? And on this intake form, you could say what type of scent you wanted in your room. You could say what type of lotion you wanted them to use. I don't know if that was actually part of it, but for the example, you could say where's your highest pain points on your body that you wanted them to work through. If you wanted to finish up with tea or milk or whatever the case may be. And what I realized was the steps for fulfilling on the said massage was exactly the same for the whole hour. You know, you got the scent of the candle, the type of lotion, fixing the knots in certain body parts, the milk or the tea at the end. But it felt custom because I was the one that got to choose it. So that's something to keep in mind too. You can provide personalization without necessarily creating something custom, so you can keep your scalability and the client can keep that feeling of intention, which I liked, and I've tried to mimic since. All right, next is pricing and guardrails. For packages, you usually are going to want 3 tiers, change orders as modules, and then it's time-bound milestones for the most part. In custom, you're probably going to do paid discovery at 5 to 10% of what the cost would be to fulfill. And then typically you might do something like 40-40-20 billing, phase gates, and then weekly caps on the type of work. A hybrid approach would be pretty similar to what I just described. You'd have the package price plus a menu of modules, and you would never exceed 3 modules, which I like that too. So if you wanted to give it a go on whether you should transition to custom work, continue with the packages, or a mix of both, first week is you're going to decide and define. The second week is you're going to systemize and step. These are all the same and provide quality assurance. Week 3, you might update your website and branding, your proposals, and all of those things, and reach out to 3 warm leads to pitch them on said things. And then 4th week is you're going to deliver and measure the cycle time, quality assurance, pass rate, and then the gross margins. And then you're going to want to tighten around those things. So here's the action for you. Go ahead and score yourself between 0 to 2 on each of those components that I mentioned earlier, where I walked through what they each meant. 0 to 6, publish a 3-tier package. If you score 12 to 16, you can install paid discovery and some phase gates. If you score 7 to 11, you're going to productize the core and then cap it at 3 modules. You're going to productize the core, and then you can add some add-ons, but you control them, and I would cap them at like 3 different add-ons for custom work, something like that. There's another way to do the hybrid approach to this that I don't know is talked about a lot, and it's currently something I am testing, so I haven't completely verified that this is the absolute truth and way to do it. So something that I've been toying with is the idea of doing hybrid, but only in how it's positioned or angled. So when you're on a sales call, it's almost very similar to value-based pricing, which is you price based on how much value you can provide to a company. And Justin Moore talked about this on his episode where he said you should be pitching different prices to different brands because they're different, they require different things. So when you're on a sales call and you realize that maybe this is a bigger fish and you only have templated packages or something like that, you do the normal discovery that you would do on a sales call, but instead of going straight into your pitch, you say, hey, I'm going to cook up something custom for you. And you should do what we mentioned here of having the options plus some module add-ons there. But that gives you, if you only have pre-templated packages, you can still offer those packages as custom in the secondary call and make it a little more specific to them by adding branding or something like that, or altering prices or anything of that sort. Hopefully that makes sense. As I mentioned, this is still a theory of mine. That way you just never trap yourself while also not bogging down complexity when you're trying to scale. Anyway, maybe that was too much information. I think so far in practice, it's been helpful to me. So I wanted to offer it to you. If this episode has been helpful in general or in any sense, go ahead and subscribe, like, and comment if you want to see more like these.